Well, guys, we're gonna jump in here. It's 2 after 9, and so first and foremost, we appreciate everybody who is joining us live. We know that many more, especially today, will be joining us in video and watching this later. We wanted to acknowledge that. I'm excited to get our first state of the industry in the books for 2021. But Leslie and I actually talked quite a bit about whether or not we'd move this, whether or not we'd move it to Thursday, do we do it at 10? And honestly, we teach and we preach for years how consistency plays a role in our businesses and our lives, and time blocking and scheduling and focusing on what's most important to you and what's most important to us. And quite honestly, right now, you are most important to us. As we take a few moments before we jump in and I get to have a conversation with our guest, you're going to see that the numbers that we share around our brokerage have everything to do with our agents. Those were the most important numbers as we headed into 2020. They showed up as the most important numbers every single month, and will continue to every single month in 2021. So we're here today because we want to be consistent. We want to focus on what's most important in our agents' worlds and their lives, and we believe it's what we can control. We believe it's what we put at the start of our day and at the end of the day, and what we fill the middle of the day with. So Leslie's going to jump in and share some market stats. We're going to take a few minutes to share what's going on in the market, and then we'll take a few minutes to share what happened in your world, in the Xperience Brokerage world. We have quite a few new things rolling out as well. Some rolling out this year, some rolling out this month, some even rolling out this week. Our guest is going to talk about a few of those. We're launching our podcast, as all of you know, Xperience Growth. It's named after our mission, our brokerage mission, our company mission around building experiential lives while also building big businesses. And so excited for that. You'll be able to download the first episode, actually the first 4 episodes after tomorrow. And just a quick glimpse at our first interview. Our first interview actually that we're releasing is with the former president and CEO of KW, Mark Willis. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about what he did at KW. Mostly we're going to talk about why he left, right at the peak, and the journey he went on post KW, and also about his foundation, the Willis Foundation, where he leads development of early cancer detection through canines, and why he does that. But some awesome conversations. I really hope you downloaded that and listened to it. What caused me to go there, guys, was I saw him post something about Winston Churchill, and going into the woods. And I related to that. We've shared so many lessons about Churchill. And so I reached out to Mark and had a conversation with him and thought, gosh, there's no one better for our community to have a conversation with, a man that always lived experientially than Mark. So excited to talk to him about that. And many of you have seen he's recently rolled out some classes. He's an instructor at the Forbes School of Business as well through real estate. So excited about that. But Leslie, why don't you jump in? I'll be quiet, and excited to hear you share some numbers, both about the industry and the company.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Well, for those of you who have sat on any mastermind of mine, any all partners meeting or team meeting, any coaching session, you know I love numbers. So today we're going to talk a little bit about numbers. I'm a true believer that in business, numbers tell us the story, and what a story 2020 told. So now that those numbers are in from 2020, we get an opportunity right now to look back and take a look about what actually happened in our markets, what actually happened in our market centers, and what actually happened in our business. I talk a lot about that perception is a reality, and just because it's your reality doesn't actually make it real. So today we're going to talk about what actually happened in 2020 and the story that we're telling our clients, our industry, our teams, and the story that we're telling ourselves as we navigate 2021. So we're going to start with what happened in each of our market areas, starting with Portland Metro, and then we'll transition to what happened in each of the brokerages. So this is just your year in review of our Portland Metro area. Some of these themes are going to be throughout all of our service areas. Some of them are going to be, topics are going to be unique to local areas. But of course, the big theme that we're going to see throughout this conversation and what we're projecting throughout 2021 is that big conversation around listing inventory. In Portland Metro, of course, we hit another all-time low of 0.8 months of inventory on the market. But when we start unpacking that and we're looking a little bit deeper, I want you to go over and take a look at what happened in the snapshot of that December month, right? Where in 2020, we took 1,740 new listings as opposed to 1,270 in 2019. And a single month in a COVID year, that was a 37% increase in listings taken. We saw it reflected in each of our market centers across the state of Oregon, and in many of you setting historic listing numbers. Now, if we transition that over to our pending sales, we also had an increase of 13% in pending sales and 26% in closed sales. So one of those threads of conversation that we're going to see throughout this conversation is we have talked and had classes and trainings and masterminds around the lack of inventory. So the question I want to ask you today, and as you're looking at your own business, is this a listing problem or is this a buyer demand challenge that we're facing? In fact, in some cases, and I heard this on an amazing podcast I was listening to yesterday, is this an insatiable buyer demand challenge? Because we have been going out and taking those listings, but quite frankly, the buyers are just absorbing them faster than we can actually get them listed. Of course, we're going to see a massive increase in that average sales price, the median sales price, and no surprise that our total time on market has dropped by 37%. Now, just to kind of emphasize that listing conversation, you're going to take a look at, I added a couple of charts, right? Active listings in 2020, that red line, no surprise there throughout the year. Our active listing inventory has been dramatically less than what we've seen in the previous couple of years, when even during those times, we were facing a shortage of inventory. So when we go down to Lane County, gosh, the story is very, very similar, and even less inventory than we're even seeing in Portland Metro. 0.6 months of inventory. I mean, you guys are looking at 2 weeks of listing inventory at any given time. But once again, when we talk about that trend that we're seeing, once again, you had a 25% increase in listings taken over 2019 in the month of December. And so you're still seeing that you're going out, you're doing what we're talking about, you're taking that market share, you're getting those listings on the market, and those buyers are absorbing it faster than we can get it listed. Once again, you're going to see very similar trend line, just a little bit more emphasized in that Lane County with 2 weeks of inventory. And of course, just not enough homes out there for our buyers. Now in Salem, the big conversation here is, you know, congratulations, you guys, you have 1.38 months of inventory. Isn't that an odd thing to say, Chris? 1.38 months of inventory, and there are parts of the state that would love to have that. But when we look at what that norm would be, and I even hesitate to say norm or normal anymore, is you've had a 45.75% decrease in listings in your market this year. So that's what you're feeling, is that it is so dramatically different from what we would consider a normal listing inventory. Same theme is showing up. December, you had that increase of listings over 2019 with 1156 listings over 945 of last year. And your pendings, like, that's a huge jump, 1416 over 1156 of same time last year. And that's going to carry out throughout the year. Okay, down south, you guys have your numbers show up a little bit differently. And one of the things that was really interesting in packing that market in Jackson and Josephine County is unlike our Eugene market, our Salem market, and our Portland metro market, where that curve really saw kind of a jump of inventory and towards the end of the second and into that third quarter, you guys have a very, very different trend line in your number of active listings and listings taken on the market. If you backtrack to January, take a look at that red trend line where you started the year with, I hesitate to say it again, a decent amount of inventory, certainly a significant amount more than you are seeing now in both Jackson and Josephine counties. But as we close out the year, looking at only 1.09 or 1.14 months of inventory. So what happened here? Honestly, I would attribute this largely to local impact and outside influence, right? Where these were two counties that were hit very hard during our wildfire time. So while we were seeing listings happening in that period of time in our Salem, our Eugene, and our Portland metro areas, not only did we not see a lot of those houses hit the market that we normally would have seen during that very active market time, we actually had a lot of, unfortunately, inventory removed from the possibility of being sold. Once again, I think what you're feeling down there is if we look back, we're talking about a drop of over 64% in Jackson County and 60% in Josephine County of just that's that dramatic shift of that inventory dropping as we closed out 2020. So that's going to be a snippet of what happened in our MLSs, in our industry, in our service areas. We're going to transition because I think it's really important, one, to recognize what's happening out there in the local market, what's happening in the industry, so we can share that story. But we also want to take a minute and take a look at comparing ourselves to ourselves. And Chris talked a lot about that. Is when in March, when uncertainty hit us, we looked at each other and said, what are we going to do to add value to our agents every single day? We looked internal, we invested internal, we launched a lot of initiatives and trainings to help support you. So how did that actually turn out on a brokerage or a market center level? In 2020, we are excited to welcome 257 new Xperience family members to our network throughout the state of Oregon. So a lot of new faces, a lot of launching businesses, a lot of incredible producers that have decided to join and grow with us here at the Xperience Brokerage Network. Now, production is the story. Across the network, we saw incredible gains in certain categories. One of those is that we closed 8,240 homes, an increase in each of our market centers. But the bigger story, as Chris talked about, is we are looking at what was the production of each and every single one of our family members. Across the network, we saw a gain of 17.1% increase of units per agent, with some standout locations in some of our market centers, including our capital city Salem location that saw over a 52% increase in closed units per agent. Of course, the volume follows. We closed over $3.38 billion with the B in closed volume in 2020. And this is a huge one that we're looking at, which is 27.4% increase on a closed volume per agent throughout our network. Once again, we saw a massive increase in each of our locations in that production per agent volume increase, as well as an overall 13% increase throughout the network. So GCI, it all boils down to what are our agents taking home and putting in their pocket? In 2020, we did over $83 million worth of GCI, and that was a 26.3% increase per agent throughout the network and their gross commission income earned. So all of that being said, in a quick summary of those numbers, the best way to put it is our agents are selling more homes at a more volume and a higher GCI than they ever have per agent in the history of our brokerages. Now, profit is the story of business. And so how did that end up looking for you, our stakeholders and our shareholders? And this is a number that we're very proud to announce to the entire network, that in the year of 2020, we distributed $1.135 million of profit share back to you, our partners in growth, our stakeholders, our shareholders. We're very excited about that number. And for those of you keeping track, that is a cumulative over $9.7 million back to you, our partners in growth, over the entire life of our network. So 1.135, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, join me at the next profit share class, because Chris and I will stay committed to helping each and every one of you live that big life by design and increase your net wealth through this awesome passive income source. All right, so that was a lot of numbers, but we're not done with the celebration yet. We did an incredible fourth quarter push, because the topic all year was listings, listings, listings. So we want to take a moment to acknowledge and celebrate our fourth quarter takeover listing award winners, as well as some additional recognition. So for those of you who know, we ran that competition, and every list and take in the fourth quarter was tracked and celebrated on a weekly basis. So at the end of 2020 and the fourth quarter, we want to give a special recognition to our winners in each of our market center locations. In Capital City, Sheena in our rookie category, Amber Archibald and the solo broker, the Brock Real Estate Group in the team category, the Benson Broker Group taking the group category. Out of Eugene, our rookie category is Corinne Thompson, solo broker category, Nick Nelson, the Mondragon team for our team category, and of course, congrats to the Josh Cooley team in that group category. At KW Realty Professionals, we had a two-way tie. Congratulations on our rookie category of Nicole Ball and Megan Bauman, solo broker category, Ian Christ, and then team category, the Rob Levy team and the PDX Property Group taking that group category. Southern Oregon, a great showing. David Janowski for our rookie category, Dawn Downing for our solo, Team Kelleher for our team category, and the Rutledge Property Group for that group category. And finishing out with Sunset Corridor with our solo broker category, Jim Kavanaugh, team category, Sarah Hesselman, and our group category, the Pacific Group. So huge congratulations to all those. But the big question is who led the network? So our network leaderboard is, we had a three-way tie in our rookie category. Congratulations to Nicole Ball and Megan Bauman, as well as Corinne Thompson out of Eugene, for taking the rookie category, each taking 2 listings in the fourth quarter. Jim Kavanaugh throwing down in the solo agent category with 11 listings out of Sunset Corridor. Our team category in Eugene Springfield with the Benjamin Mondragon with 10 listings. And of course, our group category in Southern Oregon with 25. So awesome to see that we got a great showing from across the network with winners in every category. All right, you guys. So which market center took the most? A huge congratulations to Keller Williams Realty Professionals. As a network, we took 760 listings. Our leading the pack was our KWRP with a total of 244 listings taken, followed by Sunset Corridor with 190, Eugene Springfield with 150, Southern Oregon with 93, and Capital City with 83. And since our market centers are all different sizes, it's important to recognize that we are focusing on that per agent production. So huge congratulations for Southern Oregon, throwing down the market center with the most listings per agent for the market center. Whew. Chris, that wraps up our market update by the numbers, our brokerage network update, and our fourth quarter winner update. That was a whole lot of celebration. I'm going to turn this show back over to you to introduce our incredible guest of the day, a dear friend of mine, and I will let you take it from here.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Leslie. Guys, one thing I just wanted to share, and I posted it in the chat just briefly, but at moments in 2020, it didn't feel that way. And that's why it's good to reflect at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, and really look at what was accomplished. I'm a firm believer that data will always beat drama. And as we look at the data, Leslie and I, every single week and then every single month looked at what was our per agent productivity, right? That's the number that we care about. If our agents are in production, if our agents are selling real estate, then they're able to build these experiential lives. If they're not selling real estate, then we have not earned the right to be in business with them. And that's our mindset, that's our philosophy, and it's how we show up every single day. And so it was just awesome to see that the categories that we saw the most improvement in, the categories that we were winning, was right per agent productivity in terms of units closed, GCI, production, volume. And so just really, really proud of everybody that got to work, right? We put aside all the noise most of the time that was going on, and really put our heads down and did great work. So just wanted to acknowledge everybody and just say thank you. Thank you for serving our clients so well. And today, as we kick off 2021, and Leslie and I talked about who we wanted to introduce you to, I really felt there was no better person to talk to than who we're going to spend the next 45 minutes with or so, Vija Williams. And here's why. I'm going to have Vija introduce herself in just a minute, but understanding where Vija came from and where she's been will help you understand why we want you to know her. Vija has been in almost every role that you can imagine in the brokerage world, truly. Most importantly, she grew up as an agent in the industry. Solo agent, team, group, to this day still leads a group. And right now, her one thing is driving production and growth at the brokerage level for all of my business partner, Ben Kinney's brokerages. And so Vija, first of all, welcome to the Xperience Brokerage Network. It's surprising to me as I thought back that we have not had you on as a guest before, but what I'd love you to do is maybe just in just a few minutes, tell us who you are, kind of what was your journey in real estate, what did you look like as an agent, and what are you doing now? Like what is your focus now?
Well, I was younger and thinner, Chris, as an agent.
All right.
Thanks for having me, everybody. And I mean, it's such an honor to be here. Usually when people say that, it's because they couldn't get Ben. So like, wow, really?
Well, we've had Ben actually. So
yeah, that's why. Yeah, no, it's all good. It's a historic day. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. As a brown woman, I can't not shout that out today, and and kind of feel weird about competing against it. But yeah, I'm a second generation realtor, Chris. My dad, in fact, a lot of you guys, if you're kind of those trackers, if you kind of track the Keller Williams numbers, and you ever see Team Builder on the top kind of 20, 30 rankings. That is now my brother's company, but my dad started it. So he started the first builder services, national builder services company in the nation back in like 1980, when all of the big builders used to have employees that sold their properties, and they became an advertising agency and a real estate brokerage, kind of an in-house brokerage for builders. And he grew and developed that. And then I got him over to Keller Williams, and then my brother has since bought it. So I always probably knew I was going to go into real estate, Chris, but you know, that wasn't my jam. My jam was definitely to have my own empire, not to be with dad. So I just kind of started in my 30s. I had 3 kids, which is, you know, I have 3 kids, and I just sold real estate and I did really well. I worked hard, but I also played hard. You know, I made a lot of money. I spent a lot of money. I was with another brokerage at the time, and I hit 40, which I'm now much more open about talking about my age. It took me a while. But I found that I like talking about my age because the rebirth I went through at 40, I think, is an important message to share. Feels sometimes like we're in a young person's world. And so I feel kind of compelled to share my age a little bit now more. It's hard. Like, you know,
No,
I don't.
yeah, like, and I might ask you how many years ago is 40?
10. That was 10 years ago. So I had my third child a couple months before my 40th birthday, which is fun. And I had my first child at 30. So really my 30s were, you know, I was a mom, and then I was kind of a realtor on the side. And something happened, you know, and my husband, he was the primary breadwinner during that time. And you know, we did really well. And then something happened when I hit 40, right around that era, the market crashed. And when the market crashed, we were in dire straits. You know, we were that total poster child agent that you paint the picture of. Made a lot of money, almost lost it all. We didn't lose it all, but almost lost it all. And, you know, crisis events make you reset. And it ignited something in me. It was like my awakening. And I just thought, okay, I switched brokerages. That's when I came to Keller Williams. It was like this instinct, like I need to go big right now or go home. So we were about to lose our house. I had this, you know, 1-year-old baby. I've always had a really good book of business, but that was about it. And I came to Keller Williams coming into 2011. It was like December of 2010, right? December is my cap year. And I came to Keller Williams, and I just kind of head down, started working. And then in 2012, I scraped the money together to go to family reunion, used my brother-in-law's frequent flyer miles. Tracy Ford and I shared a room at the Red Roof Inn, and it was so horrible and crappy. When we checked in, the person checking out was checking out because of bed bugs. So that meant I'm not really I'm a middle of the road social person, but I did not want to go back to that room. So I stayed up late and got out early. It was really good for me. It kind of forced me out, and I met a ton of people, and my mind was blown. That was the first time in my life I had just been exposed to big thinking. I remember sitting in the crowd, hitting the person next to me who I didn't know. And I go, did they just say they sold 500 homes? Because team? What is it? How, a team? Wait, you can do a team and sell real estate? Like, it was like, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Like, it blew my mind. And I'm embarrassed to tell you, like, at John L. Scott, I just had no exposure to that. Right. So I came home, and we were just kind of recovering, you know, from this financial thing. I traveled. I got on a plane 10 times that year. I don't know how I did it looking back. I just kind of made enough. I went to Recruit Select, which is now Career Visioning. I went to every class I felt like I needed to learn how to be a business owner. I realized that was going to be a deficiency, and I just knew that was my path. So, you know, then I went on the team route, is probably the short story. And, you know, really briefly, because this is your top agents, I guess, I didn't know what I was doing. I was a good salesperson. So if you guys are kind of that person, you're like, I'm really good at selling real estate, and I have no idea how to get from A to B. One of the things, so Ben Kinney bought my market center. So he bought it in 2012. I didn't know him. And anyway, he invited me to coach with him. And I just kind of hit this, I would say, this moment of surrender in my life where I was like, all right, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know about this guy. Like, I don't know if some guy in Bellingham can really help me in Kirkland. I'm in a really upscale suburb of Seattle. But, you know, I'm just going to kind of lean in and just like kind of blindly follow. I'm going to try this out and like see if it works. So he would coach me. I'd drive up to Bellingham, he would coach me, and I would just sort of fight those inner voices going, I can't do that. And I just did it. You know, I just kind of did it. And Chris, it was all the red book. It was just the MREA, like hook, line, and sinker. So I did 9.6 million in 2011, I think it was. And then I did 25 million that year in 2012, traveling 10 times. Then I did 37 million and then 48 million and then like 69 million and then kind of bumped along that 65 to 70 million. And that's kind of where I peaked out before I left.
So let me ask you something. A couple things jump out at me. You saw people doing things that you had never thought were possible, and came back home and just started educating yourself and learning. I mean, I know you as a learner. I also believe that some of us can get overcoached or overlearned or overclassed. How do you manage that with so much available? Can you give us some insight now as you look back? What was good? What would you have done differently? How do we not get distracted by everything that's there, but really curate what's best for us at where we're at?
That's a really good question. So what popped into my head is Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley, probably my favorite podcast is the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast. And Andy Stanley said something that's kind of turned into one of my foundational truths. And it's that you can activate a doer to be a thinker, which I actually think that's what I am. I think I'm a thinker, but I'm a doer more than I'm a thinker. That's hard to say because I really value the thinking part, but it's harder to activate a thinker to be a doer. So if you're naturally an executor and a doer, and I think you just know if you are or not, so with that say, I know myself, I'm a doer. In fact, I'm prone to jump in and do very fast and quick. So for me, it's never going to be a problem going to too many classes or reading any books, Chris. In fact, I need to do that because I'm such a doer, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a doer who I probably always was a thinker, but who is purposeful about my thinking. I do think we know really smart, awesome people who might be more thinkers than activators and doers. And there's a huge place for that. There's nothing wrong with it. I do think that you need to hire around that a little bit and be careful about that and just be sure that you're stacking your dominoes correctly. So, you know, one of the things that I was very aware of was the first thing I have to do is learn how to hire. That was going to be my weakest. It's a good instinct because that's always where our fails and where we need to be good at. So most of the classes I was going to were on that. I kind of knew, Chris, like I was like, I don't need to take a bookkeeping or accounting class right now. Right now, what I can do is hire a bookkeeper, and down the road, you know, I can worry about P&Ls and balance sheets, and you know, so anyway.
So one of the things, if our agents are taking notes, you had to understand who you were, and I would say, I'll be honest, and I would say probably half of our agents are doers and half of our agents are thinkers. And you're right. I remember when I first heard Andy Stanley say that it is easier to activate a doer into thinking and change how they think rather than getting a thinker to actually act. And if you're a thinker, that will be a challenge for you, right? It will always be a challenge to get into activity. So be careful. If you find yourself as that visionary thinker, we oftentimes gravitate towards this class and this class and this class and this class. And in effect, it could be a distraction. If we're a doer, we oftentimes don't take classes. Like that was me. Like I never went to any class before I came to KW because I just head down, let's go to work. So I think that's a little bit of self-reflection and then curating a curriculum. Now, you also said in your world, thankfully, someone reached out to you and said, can I mentor you? And a mentor or a coach is a critical connection for us if we're a thinker, getting us to act. And if we're an actor, getting us to go and say, okay, now you need to go and learn this. You need to be coached on this. You need to take this class. So I think that's a huge takeaway for our agents. So thank you for that. Okay, so you built something big. It didn't always go as you planned, right? Many of our agents have heard you speak, whether it's on KW stage or Inman stage, or read the article that Outfront did some years ago, right? You were on the front desk of our office for literally years. I think it's still there.
I'm so sorry about
right?
that, everybody.
The cover of that article. I just have, most know that story about how things didn't go well. My question for you is, when things don't go well, when things don't go as we planned, what did you do? Like, how did you get through that and not get discouraged? Because for some, we just went through some great numbers in 2020, but that wasn't everybody's story. We have agents that struggled. We have agents that their business went down. We have agents that just got in and think, what did I do? I left my job and now I'm here. Like, what do you do when things don't go well?
I mean, that is such a long answer, but because it is the answer. That is the question, and this is the answer. I am a firm believer, Chris, that one's success in business is directly correlated to one's ability to bounce back from failure and to handle stress. And I guess those are two separate things, but they tend to go together because the stress tends to come from failure. And so there's a couple things I would say to you guys. If first of all, is I want to acknowledge that your self-confidence can take a hit. And I don't think that's talked about enough. And I get it. I understand it. You have got to figure out how to get up from that. You just, you need to be relentless with yourself, and you need to figure it out. So for me, and if any of you guys listen to my podcast, it's Empire Building is the name of it. Little shameless plug. They always make fun of me, like, okay, Vija, your favorite word, but my favorite word is framework. There's a framework for everything in my world. And you can't let your emotions rule your failure. So you need to come up with some kind of a framework, right? Which is what I did, Chris. I mean, really for me, my failure framework is, it's just gotten myself in the habit of asking myself a bunch of questions, is a simple version of it. But I have gotten in the habit now of anticipating failures a lot better. I use the past failures that I've had, and I go, okay, well, let's go now. Let's anticipate, what can happen next. So the first thing that I recommend to everybody that you do, especially if you're in a broken place right now, is go upstream. Be honest with yourself and say, all right, when did this really start? One of the things I talk about teaching, and it's a really not a good analogy, so don't judge me for this analogy, but it's the best one I can think of. Malcolm Gladwell famously said that a plane crash is not one malfunction. It's an average of 7 consecutive malfunctions to bring a plane down. So bad weather probably won't bring a plane down. It could, but it probably won't. An engine failure probably won't bring a plane down. A bad flap, they could probably figure out how to land it. There's been a precedent for that. Landing gear can't go down. They figured it out. But when all of those things go down, plus pilot error, plus whatever, that's when we have plane crashes. So often your big fails are not one thing. And I think that we want to just go, it's this one thing. It's usually a constellation of things, right? And it probably boils down to you, but don't let your self-confidence get shaken so much that, so what? So it belongs to you. You have to tell yourself, look, I took a big swing. I need to expect big fails. And the bigger swings I take, the bigger fails I'm going to have. Like, okay, self, like, are you ready for that? Because you just can't have a big life and not anticipate big fails. So the first thing I do is I go upstream. And I go, all right, like, when did this really start? What's the real cause? What are the causes? What are the underlying causes? I immediately go, which one of my core people do I need to pour into right now? Who's in jeopardy for this? Often these fails are when people leave. So let's bolster our people, our core people. And then, I've gotten really good. You can't control your first reaction. I've gotten really, really good at controlling my second reaction. So, that habit is, all right, what can I control right now? What do I need to do to mitigate the bleeding? And I've just gotten really good at crisis management. I think we all have probably this year. And then I just ask myself a series of questions. One of the most important questions, though, that I think is good to teach agents that have teams and stuff is, my staff used to get so mad at me because they'd be like, okay, we know what you're going to ask, but is this systemic or situational? Is this a systemic fail? Is this because of a process problem, a person problem? You know, is this going to be ongoing? Or some fails are just situational. I mean, if your deal fell apart and your client fired you, you know, the question is that because there's a glitch in your system? And if you look back, you know, was this on its way to happening with other clients, or was this just a one-off thing that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a, you know, it's an ongoing problem? So I ask questions like that, you know, what did I do well? There's always something you did well. What did I suck at? You know, what do I need to do to improve where I sucked? And all the things, you know, it's just asking yourself, self-reflecting. I have a bunch of questions I'm happy to share. I mean, we could spend the whole time on this one.
Well, here's what one of the things that I think is incredibly valuable is first, I'd not heard that analogy. And although we don't want to think about
I know
it plain, it's a perfect analogy, truly. Like, I had not heard that. And I think that that's really, really valuable. I was listening to an interview just the other day with Rich Deviney, former Navy SEAL. And, ultimately he said self-confidence really, or lack of self-confidence is just not being able to deal with uncertainty. There's nothing certain in our business. And that's why confidence in real estate is so strong. And so you said, gosh, when I go back to like what happened and how do I deal with it, we have to do something very, very quickly to build back our confidence if it got shaken. And lack of confidence comes from uncertainty, and uncertainty leads to fear. And that's where you see people, one thing goes wrong and they just sort of crumble. Even if it's just getting back out there the next day and doing something easy to build back that confidence is really, really important. I think you always do that really well, Vija. If something goes wrong, okay, well, what do I do well? How do I get there? What do I do to build that confidence back? I think
now I do, Chris, but it wasn't always that way. I mean, there are tears. There were many tears. I mean, this is the, what Ben calls Vija 2.0. This is an involvement of a ton of fails. I'm awesome at failing now. I have a failure framework. The reason I'm awesome, and by the way, how do you know if you're awesome at failing? Because you use them to grow, and you use them to anticipate other fails and to be better. If you use the fails, you're awesome at failing, and you continue to grow. It's simple. But I do want to acknowledge, for all of you, if your self-confidence has taken a shake, you guys have to slap yourself in the face and figure out a way to get on with it. At the end of the day, people will admire you. Don't worry about what other people think. They will really, really admire you for putting on the big girl pants, big boy pants, and going on and building that thing. They really will. Like, get over it somehow. Get over it. The agent community doesn't think you're an ogre because you lost a bunch of agents. Trust me, you're fine. There's plenty of agents who want to come work for you. All the thoughts that come into your head. I do want to acknowledge that that's real.
Yeah, I love that. So 2021, we're headed into the new year here in January. Your role now is really meeting with agents every day, right? Agents that are productive, or getting agents into production if they're not. What do you see as some of the most important things that we need to focus on individually, collectively, solo agent, whether it's team, as we head into 2021? Or there are certain things that you're focused on right now?
Yeah, it's another great question. So our market is the exact same as yours. And what's interesting is I do webinars every Wednesday, and I interview people from all around the nation. Most coastal, major metropolitan urban markets are in the same boat. We have no inventory. So Leslie, I invited Leslie on our network meeting last Tuesday, and she said some of the things that I shared with our group, which is that we had a record number of new listings, as an example, come on at the Northwest MLS, our Puget Sound MLS. We had a record number of new listings come on in December. Most new listings we've ever had since 2010. And we went down in inventory. So really, the question isn't so much a supply side choke, which I was thinking, it's buyer insatiability. It really, truly is. And that is a cool script. I mean, like, if you think about it, how are you talking to your clients? So I really think of this as database and data this year. Data is, I know you and I share this love, but I cannot express enough, especially agents at your guys' level, you need to learn how to look up relevant data and how to communicate it to your clients. You really, really do. It has been my secret sauce my entire real estate career. I have been on Trend Graphics for 17 years. And for 17 years, I have read 3 or 4 data points, not 17, not 12. I do the same thing. I go, okay, actives, pendings, inventory, supply for maybe it's 15 years, like 15 to 17 years. And I got them to get Trend Graphics when I came to Keller Williams. That's how much I've used it. It doesn't matter what your program is. And I guess my point is that when you look at the same data points for 15 years and you just know, like you talk differently, like, you know, Chris, like I can just say to you, we brought a record number of new listings on in December, and we actually went lower in inventory. Well, let's do the math. That's not actually a supply side choke. That is hopeful. That's actually awesome, right? So what does that mean? So when we say database and data, you know, once you really understand the data, and I think it's kind of cliche for me to say, oh, work your database, but let's think about it. Are you really using your database? Are you being a bloodhound? Are you being a detective right now? You know, hey, Chris, you know, this is Vija. How are you? How are the girls? You know, whatever. Chris, you know, I'm calling partially because we have a record number of pre-approved buyers. Vija Group has 17 pre-approved buyers right now, 5 of which are literally waiting for a house to buy in Houghton. So I'm calling to see, I don't know, do you guys have any real estate related plans this year? Have you guys thought about making any moves? You know, no. Okay, great. Does anyone in the neighborhood, have you heard any talk at all? Is anyone thinking about selling? You know, yeah, you know, blah, 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 or no, awesome. Hey, Chris, would it be okay? I'm so excited to move these awesome clients into our neighborhood. Would it be okay if I pinged you from time to time this year to just kind of get your antenna up and to ask you, you know, what's happening in the neighborhood? Would that be okay? So I think that using our database, kind of being bloodhounds for inventory, you know, any of our typical activity, our FSBOs, our expireds, having the courage of your convictions and your scripts, like, you know, Chris, I don't think you understand when I say you need to bring that old expired on the market. We're in unprecedented historic times. I have never seen a market like this. I had been in both big markets, 2005 and 6, and then I was in the last little run too. This is insane. This is insane. And I know, Chris, you've talked about moving into the outerlying areas where we can get you a great house at 2.8% interest rate. I'm serious when I say, I think we need to sit down and at least look at the data together and do a walkthrough of your house and have a talk, you know, and if nothing else, we can kind of framework a plan. So I just think that, you know, I don't mean to be like cliche, like, okay, work your database, but really think about, like, are you utilizing and leveraging them to the best ability that you can? What does your marketing look like? What do your conversations look like? Are you sending market data? Every single one of them should be on market reports. Those are the best things you can send. They don't want your recipes. They don't. Although I made a really, really good miso black cod that you want this weekend. That was a good recipe, but my clients don't want it. What they want is they want the neighborhood data. That's really what they want right now. And you can see when they open it and you can call. So that's what I think they should focus on.
What I love, guys, if you're taking notes, is connecting data to database. That's an easy mental connection, even just right, you know, through the words, and finding what data you're going to use to that message. Keep in mind also that as you want to stand out, that's a very, very different message, the one that Vija just gave you. Everybody grabbed MLS's 0.8% like months of inventory, threw it up on Facebook and said, hey, like there's no inventory. And what we have to be careful about is if I'm a seller and there's no inventory, remember, human beings are herd animals. So if no one else is listing their house, then why would I? If no one else is putting their home on the market, why would I? But that isn't the message. In fact, that's actually misinformation. The reality is more people put their house on the market this month than the month before, and the month before that, and the month before that in December. Why? Because they want to take advantage of an opportunity, which means if they all took an advantage of the opportunity as a herd animal, why am I not taking advantage of the opportunity? Like the message is about the number of buyers snapping up, the record number of listings that are hitting the market. Like you did change the conversation there, which actually makes it easier even from a a psychological perspective for a seller to make the move as well.
Yeah,
Incredibly.
absolutely. But it started from, I mean, I study the data every month. I mean, it is just a habit that like, I always know our data. I could be at a dinner party. You will not catch me off guard with that. You know, I'll pretty much always know it. I might be a month behind, but yeah, you're right. I didn't think about the herd animal thing. You're absolutely right on that. That's a good call.
One of the things, and this is just a demonstration of this specific podcast that you did, and forgive me because I don't remember what day or what week I listened to it, but you did a podcast so very recently around communication, the value of communication, and what we'll do is in our email out, we'll send out that link because you talked about how important communication is. You told the story of when you really realized that, oh my gosh, I better become a good a communicator. And you said there are some key parts of communication. I'll go through them, and any one that you feel is the most important, maybe or jumps out, I'd love to get your take on it for this group. But I encourage everybody to download it and listen to it, right? Especially that one. But you said make it about them, right? Great communicators make it about them. Great communicators listen. Great communicators understand that less is more. We have to be purposeful. Don't fear the pause, which I loved. Tell stories. Commit to being a good presenter. Commit to being a good writer, and be likable. Like, those were the keys to being a great communicator. That's what our industry is all about. Any one of those that you feel like, hey, this is the beginning of that. What would you say?
With them, number one, what's in it for me? Everybody, I mean, that is the fundamental. If you get nothing else, and by the way, communication is my favorite topic because it's been the number one reason for my success. Learning data has not been the number one reason of my success. Learning how to communicate data has been probably one of them in my real estate practice. And when I kind of had that aha that I tell that story on, I realized how important it was and how important it was going to be for what was next for me. And, you know, it's ironic you listen to that on a podcast because that's one of the byproducts. I didn't sort of do that saying, I want to have a podcast, but you know, the doors that have opened because of communication have been massive. And I think it's one of the key skills in leadership. But what's in it for me, it sounds simple. It will be a lifetime pursuit for you, like it is for me, to communicate in a way. You know, at the end of the day, you guys don't care what I'm saying and you don't care what Chris is saying. And I know you might think we're great people, but you don't care what we're saying. What you care is how it impacts your life. That's just human nature. It's in our DNA. You know, what's in it for you? What's in it for me is what everyone's saying. So when you truly let that sink in and the light bulb switches, you go, oh my gosh, I've been doing it all wrong. I've been talking about myself and all the things what I need to do is focus on the other person and what their needs are, what their problems are, what their biggest challenges are. And I need to communicate in ways that, you know, if we're in sales, that I have the perceived solution to their problem. If you're in leadership, you know, that I'm listening for barriers and challenges and I'm trying to understand ways that I can remove those barriers and challenges for my people, right? So, I mean, you know, whatever it is, when you truly communicate in a way that's about them and the benefit they're getting, it literally changes everything from your 33 touch. It'll change your subject lines and your emails to people. Instead of, hey, I've got, you know, I'm going to be on live with Chris to these amazing agents in Oregon on Tuesday. It could be, you know, learn the one thing that is holding you back in life. And it's probably surprising, and it might be communication or something. It'll change everything about your world if you learn to communicate, focusing on what's in it for them. I think that's the most important.
You know, Vija, from you know, obviously we connect quite a bit, and as I've watched you and listened to many of your Wednesday sessions, you have just continued to grow as a communicator, and it's probably been your competitive advantage. I believe that we all can gain a competitive advantage in the industry and in our craft by improving that one thing. And so when I saw that podcast, I listened to most of them, but when I saw that one specifically, like I made sure I wanted to hear your perspective of communication. So I encourage everyone to do that. So as we head towards the top of the hour, one of the things that I think is the skill that you've had to learn quickly. And actually, let me rephrase that. You've learned over decades and then had to learn quickly is actually people, right? The skill of people, of attracting people, of coaching people, developing people, reading people. We're in a people business, and it will always be a relationship-based business. Tech is there, but we are people dealing with people. We are firm believers in that. We're building our brokerages around that. What are some of the key takeaways that we can implement or be aware of when growing businesses with people?
Yeah, that is true. I went overnight. So by the way, I went I had a team of 4 or 5 people, and overnight I went from that to 6 market centers, and at the time 1,200 agents overnight. So I had, I don't know, 8 team leaders, MCAs, and everyone reporting to me. It was a pretty insane transition. So you're right. I will end with a story on that because it's very indicative of my answer. In my answer, I'll give you the punchline first. The answer is I want to be a leader, and I need to be a leader, and we all need to be leaders who openly care and love for our people. We need to be encouragers and supporters of our people, just like Chris. Chris is one of the best leaders I know, and I think he embodies that. But my story is right at the beginning of the pandemic, way in March. Behind the scenes, I pushed Ben Kinney, who I work for, a lot. I don't do it openly, but behind the scenes, I'm strong. Chris, you know that because you're sometimes involved in that. And I said, Ben, you need to address the network. And he kept going, oh, yeah, I don't know. And I'm like, you're addressing the network. I absolutely need to hear from you. I was really strong in it. I don't do that a lot. I was really strong. So I drove up to Bellingham, and he was kind of wishy-washy. I don't know. And I went in there. I go, Ben, this is your Winston Churchill moment. This is your speech. Everyone's scared. They need to hear from you. So I was up there. The office was empty. It was right at the beginning of quarantine. And I was positioned so that I don't know how to explain it. I was not on camera. So it like picture kind of in front of your computer screen on the side. So he could see me, but the people that the network couldn't see. And we have people we have Place, we had all of our brokerages, I don't know, hundreds of people in there. And he was uncharacteristically, it was an unsure moment in our world, way at the beginning, right? It's easy to look back now and say it turned out okay, and I stood there, and I remember the whole time I said, yes, good, like good. Comment back on that, and I did the whole like, good, like you delivered that, right? And I don't know why, I was just super animated. And he told me afterwards, he goes, I absolutely could not have done that without you there doing that, like coaching me on the sidelines and, and kind of encouraging me when I hit a note and kind of going, like steer this way when I hit another note. It was like a conductor, I felt like a conductor. And I remember driving home. I have a 90-minute drive, and I remember thinking, that is the kind of leader I want to be every day. I want to be that person that's behind the scenes, that's helping to steer and conduct and encourage and support my people. I don't want to be this hard-ass steamroller that I probably was in my early 40s, just being aggressive and ambitious. I want to be that leader. I want to be the person who is behind the screen with my people, while they're in front of the camera and they're having their moment. And so I would say that that's my answer. We need to be that leader.
I love that. Vija, last thing I'm going to have you talk about. We have actually a gift, truly, for on into the future for our network, because we are inviting our network, and by we, I mean you. You are inviting our network to join your Wednesdays. What does that look like, Leslie and Vija? What can our network be prepared for as we head into the new year?
Yeah, so the Wednesday webinars in a nutshell, and I know it's 10:01, sorry guys. The Wednesday webinars in a nutshell started in the pandemic, and the mission and vision of those guys is that you walk away every Wednesday, and they're from noon to 1 on Wednesdays. You walk away every Wednesday with at least 1 to 2 things you've learned that you can use in that hour. That's my goal. Very tactical. We interview people who are actively doing business. Today was like my favorite type of interview, but it's a little more esoteric today, right, Chris? It's like, how do you deal with failure, whatever. Wednesday webinars are not that. They are literally, what scripts are you using this week that are working? We had Frank Klesitz on a few weeks ago. It's like literally how to get seller leads from your database today. Here's a script of the letter. Here's a, you know, I mean, very, very tactical things. They not because of me, they're one of the best trainings out there simply because of the people on them. And so we get to go live on the Pivot Shift Ahead group. They very graciously invited us to do that, Jay and April and Roger, whatever. But there's a group of us that are on Zoom on those, and that's what we're, you know, inviting you to. And we are very interactive with our Zoom audience. We engage. I always tell the speakers, you know, we're here for this Zoom audience, and the Facebook audience is extra. And so it just means we love you guys. We just want you to be, you know, is included, and just whatever we can do to help, you know, that's what it means. And I think they're great. They're designed for our agents. They're really designed for our agents that the public can see if they want.
Awesome. Love it. I know one of our conversations over the last quarter has been how do we combine just our strategies and energy and effort in supporting real estate agents across the Pacific Northwest. You do some amazing things that we'll get to benefit from.
And vice versa. I mean, vice versa, that goes both ways. So.
Yeah. Yep. Love it. Love it. Vija, thank you so much. Thanks for spending an important hour with us. Again, for those of you that were on live, thank you so much, and appreciated the chat as well. Please, for those of you who were not on live, appreciate you watching this back and recording. And actually, as quickly as you'd like to jump into those sessions, Vija, you're doing one later today with Ben.
With Ben. And Chris, you've done one. We'll have you back too. But yeah, today's Ben, and Ben's going to talk about what to focus on in 2021. And that's in 2 hours. We can send you the link.
In the chat box, Vija. So for everybody, we had lots of questions come through. Remember that you will receive a recording of today's State of the Industry. Lots of people are asking for your script. We will have links to all of these upcoming events. We will have a link to your podcast, as well as the information that you had on communication. So no need to go searching. We also dropped it in the chat box, so we should have everybody covered, Vija, so they can join in starting this afternoon.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. First one of the year. Look forward to many, many more. And Vija, thanks for being such an awesome host, guest, and generous with your time and knowledge. Appreciate you guys.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.